All right, baby. We're live. Wednesday edition, hump day edition of the slate. That's why we got Gare Bear here today. My little meat wagon, Gare Bear.
I don't know if I like that.
All right. So Nick Fryer's here too. Hold on. I got a second. I have
Okay.
my ADHD is going off. We got Daniel on the ones and twos, baby. Producer Eamon is always trying to keep us on the rails, but Georgia has other plans right now. She's very excited for her first real haircut on Friday, and she wants to lick the vanilla flavor out of my mouth from my
Valentine's Day was yesterday, Emerson. Jeez.
I know.
Still the most action he's gotten all week.
What were we saying? I said I had something I had to say. What was it?
I don't know. We just started the show. You were insulting me right away.
Oh my God. I can't remember. I'm having a freaking brain fart.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Okay. Anywho, it was a meat wagon. I said to my wife, because I was like, we were laying on the couch and her legs were on me and I was getting kind of claustrophobic and I had to move. And I'm like, get your like dead leg, like your meat leg off me. And she was like, what does that mean? I'm like, you ever heard of like a meat wagon? And it's a hearse, like a meat wagon. Or it's like, a beefy dude who likes to fight and stuff. And she's like, no, it's not. And she thought I was calling her legs fat, but I was like, no, it's just dead. Cause like, it's dead weight, like on me. Anywho.
I think she's on something.
Gare Bear, thank you for being here today. Ulrich is traveling back from Phoenix, where he spent some time with us last week on Radio Row. We got to hang out in the final round of the Waste Management Phoenix Open. I actually met him in person. Real dude, great dude. Like just as cool as he is on air, just as Canadian as he is on air, as in person. Gare Bear, have you ever met him before?
No. It's funny because I can see him from my balcony, but our paths have never crossed.
Have you met Samir though, right?
Yeah, I think when I was in Boston 3 years ago.
Okay, yeah. So like Samir, rock solid, shorter with the stature and everything. Jeff is smaller than him.
No.
Jeff is
I was trying to figure out how tall Jeff was from all the videos and photos and stuff. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, Jeff is shorter than Samir. He's thinner than Samir. He kind of comes off as like, maybe if I look at him like, his tube socks and like his Van sneakers, I'd be thinking, oh, dude, the guy used to like shred an R or skateboard, back in the day, Fryer.
So you're saying a strong gust of wind could have taken him away in Arizona?
Yes, multiple times. I had to grab his frail, decrepit body and make sure he did not blow away.
When I saw the video of him dancing, I was like, I am not convinced that he's actually like this isn't part of the simulation or something like that. Just doesn't, it seems like it's made up by like a computer person.
Yeah, he's real. Great dude though. His wife was telling me on Instagram, she's like, I actually think he spent more time with you on this like week vacation than with us and the kids. And I'm like, you're welcome. So he's not here. We're not going to really dive a whole lot into golf. I mean, I could tell you, just stay the hell away from Tiger Woods. Just sit back and enjoy it. Even Jason Sobel said that on our show yesterday. Fryer, I guess you will have a golf pick. Maybe we'll do a Fade Fryer segment. We'll see what happens. You haven't been terrible with that. But let's start real quick. The NFL. A lot of questions right now still with quarterbacks. A lot of guys could be going anywhere. Basically, Derek Carr is no longer a member of the Raiders. Garion, give me your hottest offseason quarterback take right now, NFL.
That Derek Carr doesn't really make a difference wherever he goes. I guess there's a scenario where he ends up with like the Saints. I know that was one of the two rumored teams yesterday. There's obviously been a lot of smoke with this since he was benched during the regular season, but I mean, Derek Carr to me is kind of just a slightly less poor man's version of Andy Dalton at this point. It would almost be fitting if he ended up on the Saints to replace Andy Dalton. This is something we talked about a lot on yesterday's slate, just about the power dynamics of quarterback in the AFC versus the NFC. Like, I think if he ends up again with an AFC team, what is he, like the 12th or 13th best quarterback in the conference? Yeah. Like, I guess he makes more of an impact in the NFC, but he's still just Derek Carr at the end of the day. I just don't think he's really that big a domino, if I'm being that honest.
Yeah, no, I could not agree with you more. I don't know why everyone's so infatuated with this dude. They tried to make him work for like, what was it, Fryer? 8-9 years?
Yeah, I know, but you know what? I want to say like, oh, you go and put him on the Saints, and it's gonna work out well. I mean, I think it is the perfect fit, but at the same time, look at what he had around him in Vegas. Like at the end of things, it didn't work out well. Now, maybe is that coaching? Is maybe his head coach overrated and has had maybe one too many opportunities, but now you have to hold on to him because who knows? Money issues and whatnot. I would like to see him in New Orleans, though. I would like to see how that would pan out. I'm not like overly optimistic about it. We're talking about quarterback situations too, just in general. I know we intend to talk too much about New England related sports, but I'm not sold that Mac Jones is still going to be the guy next year. It's just a gut feeling. I don't think that, and I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking that. Certainly by the end of the season, I would love to see the Zappy era become an actual thing.
Yes. Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
I'm all set with all this with all the Mac Jones stuff. And I've never been like one of the there's plenty of people around here that are anti Mac Jones and have been since day one. I wanted to give him a chance, but I'm just kind of over it. I just think, let's move on from it. I don't see it. I don't see the overwhelming appeal. Just like one of these head coaching hires that we just saw happen recently too. I know you wanted to touch on that, Emerson.
No, I didn't, but I think you're trying to push like
I just
something you studied or prepared. If you would like to say something about NFL coaches right now, go ahead.
Well, I may or may not pay attention to what producer Eamon says to us when it comes to getting ready for the show. So maybe that's where you need to make an adjustment.
Sorry, some of us were busy setting PRs on Peloton, but go ahead.
Sure. I'm sure that ride around Scotland was outstanding. But I'll tell you what, Karen. I don't think things are going to work out in Arizona as well as people may think next season. Defensively, hey, we all said, there were plenty of people who said the Chiefs are going to expose Philadelphia's defense because they didn't face as many tough quarterbacks, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like the Gojo guy said it like on the show today, like the Chiefs absolutely earned that Super Bowl win. If anything, I think the Eagles, their defense lost it because the defense, I know Jalen Hurts had the fumble and everything, but there are no defensive adjustments. And I just think that move, while I understand the hire, I just don't think that things are going to go as well as everyone might think they're going to in AZ after hiring Gagnon away from Philadelphia.
Yeah, already off to a bad start inside that stadium. Not great, Bob. Anywho, Garion, this is my hot take, my hot quarterback take. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that's why you call it a hot take, because you can be like, it was a hot take. I think the Dolphins trade for Aaron Rodgers. They bring him to South Beach. That dude makes him an absolute top of the conference contender for 2, maybe 3 years, as long as he stays healthy. Imagine that guy. Imagine that dude under center, your team, your Dolphins, with that talent, Hill, Waddle. Who do you got on the other side of the ball? You got Chubb, right? You got Armstead's like there, like pretty decent defense, right? You know the Dolphins much better than I do. Do you remember when Aaron Rodgers won his only Super Bowl? That's when he had the Packers were like a top 5, top 10 defense. And let's not forget too, and I was reminded of this, Mike McDaniel, Matt LaFleur come from the same coaching tree here. I'm just saying it's a compelling option, and I think it's something the Dolphins should 100% consider.
I mean, they seem to be the name that has popped up in these like star quarterback is disgruntled, star quarterback might be on the move conversations for the better part of the last 5 years. Obviously it's an attractive market. A lot of the players like it because you've got the Florida tax situation, regardless of just you get to live in Miami as opposed to living in Wisconsin, let's say. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it just never seems to happen. They were connected to Brady. Yeah. It didn't happen. They were connected to Deshaun Watson. It didn't happen. They were connected to Lamar Jackson sort of during the season. And it seems like that is really cooled off in the preceding months. I just feel like right now, if you're in a situation where the Jets are really serious about going out and getting Aaron Rodgers, and again, there's connections between those two organizations as well. Yep. Obviously, Saleh comes from the San Francisco tree in his own right.
Daniel Hackett.
I think they just have more to bid with. I think the thing you have to remember with the Dolphins is they made their big move last year getting Tyreek Hill. They gave up so much draft capital to get Tyreek Hill, and I think it was justified based on what he did this season and how he performed. I think the other thing, and obviously it's a tenuous situation with Tua's health. Apparently he's taking judo classes to learn how to fall better. I hope that's really successful.
Yeah.
So again, they're trying everything with the concussion stuff. He statistically had an amazing season when he was healthy. I think for the Dolphins, you've got like a 2-year window with Tua where he's still not making absurd amounts of money. He's still operating on that rookie contract. I think because he didn't technically make the Pro Bowl this year, I think he's still operating at like a $21 million cap hit next season. That's nothing as a starting quarterback. I think they just try to build in this window with that. And with Rodgers, again, I think you're right. I think it would be a great move for them. I just think there are teams that can outbid them when it comes to actual trade packages.
Okay. Right now, Fryer, who are you betting to win the Super Bowl next year?
I'm betting to win the Super Bowl next year.
Emerson, come to me. Emerson, come to me. Come to me.
Go,
Gare Bear. Go, Gare Bear. He God, what Fryer? Jesus.
No, it's
man.
not about Nick.
Come
It's
on.
not about Nick. It's about I know what you want to hear, and I'm about to give you what you want to hear.
Say it.
28-1, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
There's a lot I couldn't even hear him.
I mean, I'll say, like, I think there's a lot to like in that tier of team. There's like the Chargers are at 22-1. I know we do this every year with the Chargers, but I do think them sort of resolving their like offensive coordinator situation is a bigger deal than we give it credit for. Like, the fact that Moore was only on the market for like 8 hours and then he was just immediately on the Chargers, like, I think it says a lot about what they think about his coaching abilities and ability to lead a Justin Herbert offense. But when you're looking for value, I mean, Justin Herbert took the leap the last half of that season. And this isn't one of those situations where it came out of nowhere. This was something we thought was going to happen. There's a pretty tangible reason it did not happen in his rookie season. Looking at you, Urban Meyer. Like, this all makes sense. We can project that he'll be even better going into next season. The Jaguars obviously still have their draft capital. They still have some money to spend in free agency. Maybe Calvin Ridley's going to be on this team next year, give him a little bit more wide receiver depth. Like, there's a lot to like here for the Jaguars specifically. And then you just start thinking about path to the playoffs, which is really what matters when it comes to these futures bets. Like, just give yourself a chance in January with a bet you're making right now. The Jaguars are going to win the AFC South.
Yep.
They just are. Like, that division is terrible.
Yep.
Like, I think they are the team that I look at that I can just go, they are going to make the playoffs next season. And they're probably going to have a home game in their first playoff game. I think I swear I'm not just telling you what you want to hear. I legitimately think the Jaguars at 28-1 are a good bet.
You are literally one of the smartest analysts that we have at DraftKings. Every word you just said, I feel smarter now because of that. And so do the millions of people potentially watching around the world. You could not be more right. It is an absolute young team with talent out the wazoo that will 1,000% improve upon their 9 wins from last year. Thank you, Gary and Thorne. Nick, go ahead. Do you have a Super Bowl pick?
Was that it?
I like how Garion brought like value to the table because it's boring to me. Like yesterday, Pierce is like, "Well, do the Chiefs, bet the Chiefs, please." And then
I don't
know, brother.
The Chiefs. I don't understand the Chiefs. And I your Pierce impression, by the way, is uncanny. I just want to throw that out there. And also, Emerson's bias side, Garion does make great points all the time, but this time especially, I do want to agree with him. But also, I'm back to being invested in the Jaguars a little bit. Emerson, I got to find that Mark Brunell jersey that I used to have. But right now,
we can wear our matching ones. Go ahead.
This is where when people talk about like the Chiefs situation, just to go on that one, like plus 600, I don't understand how everybody just thinks, oh, they won it last year, or they're going to do it again. They're the flavor of the month right now. Obviously, they earned it and everything, but I still feel like when you look at
they've got 5 straight AFC Championship game appearances. Like, it's like betting the Astros to win the American League, right?
Sure, I get it, but it's just like we're talking about repeats, and it's not like it's some easy thing to do. You want to go and take them as a conference winner. I feel like that would make a little bit more sense. But still, again, like I think you make great points about the Jaguars, and I think that this, like when you look at the Bengals, you can't throw them out, and obviously the Bills, as much as they can't get it done when it matters most, there's still enough competition where I just don't like the numbers for the Chiefs at all in this one. But the reason I'm not thinking about Super Bowl stuff, Emerson, is Gary and I are both invested in the NBA and what's going on right now, and the MLB's right around the corner too.
Yeah,
so I don't.
That's
cool.
cool.
You want to just skip over baseball or something?
No. And
Sure seems
I
like
wish
it.
if you were a professional, you would have realized Garion just kind of teed us up and was leading us into baseball after he referenced the Astros. But you were still learning, my young chinchilla. You are a young grasshopper. He referenced the Astros. And the Astros, what do they have as a win total right now? As spring training is opening up, pitchers and catchers, like everyone has reported at this point, right, Gare Bear?
I think it's 95.5.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So it is 95.5. I have it here on the sportsbook in front of me. So it's 95.5. Is that the highest? No. So they're tied. Oh, the Dodgers have 95.5 as well. So are they one of the teams you are targeting right now to bet the over under on win totals? Or do you have a favorite? Share with us, please.
I would go just under those two teams to the team I actually think will have the most regular season wins this season. And it pains me to say it, but it's the Yankees.
Wow.
The Yankees are at 94.5 right now. The PECOTA projection, so Baseball Prospectus, their sort of like season projections came out yesterday. PECOTA has them at 98 wins. Like generally these things line up pretty well, but they really like the Yankees versus what our projection system has them in terms of this over under bet. We got Frankie Montas news today that like he might not even pitch this season. It's a testament to how deep the Yankees pitching depth is and how just top end heavy they are that you can hear that Frankie Montas isn't going to maybe throw a pitch in 2023. And you're like, he was their fifth starter anyway. They'll find someone else to fill in. Like, I think if you look at some of the numbers, let's not even mention like Cole and Rodon right now. Luis Severino was a beast last year. They had Nestor Cortez make the All-Star game. Like their 3 and 4 slots are as talented as most teams' 1 and 2 slots. And if Severino in particular can pitch like he pitched last season, but prorate that to maybe 25 or 27 starts, this is just a team that gives itself a chance to win every single day, regardless of if there's a little bit of drop off with Aaron Judge. Like I don't think he's hitting 62 home runs again, but I just think that pitching staff is incredible. And I think that number is 1 or 2 wins too low. So yeah, Yankees over, I feel pretty strongly about.
I mean, hell, you can still get basically, even money here, plus 105 for them to win the AL East.
Yeah. That's another bet that I like a lot.
And then your boys are supposed to be pretty damn good. Like once again, Gary, and like your Blue Jays plus 220 to win the AL East there. You feeling pretty good about them?
I just don't think they stack up against the Yankees. I don't think they're quite there when it comes to like caliber of starting pitching. I think you could make the case their lineup is better.
Okay.
And I think the thing too, like going away from the American League East odds in particular, because this doesn't affect the actual odds because all these teams get this benefit. But one thing I didn't mention, and one thing I know Nick is going to mention, the flattened schedule. Like that's going to benefit American League East teams. That's going to benefit National League West teams.
Playing your division guys less.
Exactly. The Yankees are going to get 6 less games against the Blue Jays and 6 less games against the Rays than they would normally get. And that's just going to help them because they're filling that in with National League teams that just frankly aren't as good as those 2 teams.
Okay.
So I think that's something to look at too when you're kind of projecting the Yankees forward. Like this is just an easier schedule than they're used to getting.
All right, Fryer, on this Wednesday, February 15th, 5:45 in the afternoon Eastern time, which team's season-long win total is most enticing to you on the DraftKings Sportsbook?
So I'm not going to go and repeat everything that Gary said about the Yankees, but we are on the same page because we were actually talking before the show because that's what real friends actually do, Emerson. And we were thinking like 96.5 would be like in that range. I think Gary, you were 96, 97.5, right?
Yeah.
Like we were thinking that would be more what the number would look like. So 94.5, I'm going to take that all day. One that I actually like the under for, and again, it applies with the same principle of, okay, now this is going to be good for the American League East teams. It's also going to be good for the NL East teams to not be, well, maybe not as much for the NL East teams, but in a similar vein. I think now we look at the unders for some of the other teams where maybe they did okay last year and which one's necessarily too high. And I think the Rangers one is a little bit higher for me. It's at 82.5 right now. I know they just added DeGrom. And then of course, and they added Nathan Eovaldi. And even if like they're both in Eovaldi's injury prone, even if those 2 guys are fine, I'm not necessarily trusting that like, okay, DeGrom could go out and shove, but we've seen how many times with the Mets that they just don't do anything offensively behind them. And I'm not saying he's doomed to have to deal with that for the entirety of his career. But we've seen it enough that it could happen over and over. And it happens with really good pitchers. When Sale was at his peak with the Red Sox, there were stretches where that happened too. And Eovaldi, I just don't trust any pitchers making the transition to Texas. It just always seems to not work out. And I'm not sure exactly if that's, what the reasoning behind that is, but it happened enough where I don't need to know numbers or anything. I just know that it tends to not work. So 82.5. And then we talk about I know they're facing the Astros less and the Mariners less, but they got to face AL East teams more, and they're going to face the playoff contenders and the AL Central more too.
I mean, health is such a ginormous question mark with both of them as well. I know Eovaldi was able to hold up for most of last season, but we saw what went down with DeGrom. But even if they are healthy, I don't know if the step they take forward is big enough to take them from 68 wins to, north of 82.5. I agree with both you guys there, man. Those damn investments too in Seager and Semien, that resulted in just 68 wins last season.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that.
It's wild how just Texas can go and accrue talent, and it's been that way since they had A-Rod, and it just doesn't necessarily turn into anything. But Emerson, when you brought up, Tagarian about the Blue Jays and them possibly winning the division, a play that I had mentioned to him beforehand, again, because real friends actually talked before the shows, AL East, number of AL East teams to make the playoffs. So it's plus 105 for 2 teams to make it, or you can go plus 3 or 3 for plus 135 for 3 teams to make it. I tend to lean more towards 2 because I'm just thinking that the Rays aren't going to do it. But then that kind of goes against the logic that we've been talking about. I'm curious, Gary, have you thought about that one at all?
I bet this last year. I think it was plus 210 to have 3 AL East teams make the playoffs or something along those lines. I think 2 is probably the safer bet, and the fact that it's plus 105, I would probably just go with that. I feel a little bit better about the Rays. I don't know if it's just sort of this fear that I have of the Tampa organization from the past 12, 13 years that I just can't shake, but they actually for the first time, I think in a half decade, are going into the season with 5 legitimate starting pitchers, all of whom are pretty good. I think, injury risk aside, I think if you had to stack up opening day rotations, I think the Rays would be in the top 5, maybe even the top 3 with some of what they're bringing to the table. So I struggle to see a scenario where the Yankees and Rays or the Yankees and Blue Jays aren't in the playoffs. And I think there's a very realistic possibility all 3 are in the playoffs, because again, you're going to have this situation where the AL Central in particular, and this is one of the reasons that I like the White Sox team under when it comes to win total. I think they're 83.5. They're not going to get to feast for 19 games on the Royals and the Tigers. This is all starting to flatten out a little bit. They're going to have to face harder teams. And I think the Twins are probably the class of that division, just followed by the Guardians. I'm not even sure the White Sox are a second place team in the AL Central. So I would personally have them under 83.5 by a pretty wide margin, and sort of correlated in that bet. You can get the Minnesota Twins right now at plus 145 to make the playoffs. Yes, that's a little bit of a worrying bet because, like I said, I don't think a wild card team is coming out of the AL Central. I think there's a pretty decent chance they win the American League Central. They've got a good team. They really improved during the offseason. Obviously, Carlos Correa falling into their lap somehow definitely helps that case. They've got some young pitching.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, right?
Ridiculous, dude. He was on 3 teams.
It's crazy. Awesome. It's crazy that he just ended up back with the Twins after all this. But I mentioned those PECOTA projections earlier. The biggest discrepancy between the PECOTA projections and these win-loss totals are the Twins. They've got them at 88 wins, better than the Guardians over at Baseball Prospectus. And I'm having a hard time seeing or disagreeing with that assessment. I think at plus money, the Twins to make the playoffs is a really good investment.
All right, we got about a handful of minutes to go in this show. You both have been doing absolutely tremendous. You both also are very talented at talking basketball. So it is time now to dish out your favorite basketball bet of the night on the DraftKings Sportsbook. A little bit of something we may have touched on this morning, but this is a different audience, man. Those people were working hard. They weren't watching us at work. They were dialed into their TPS reports. Gare Bear, what do you got tonight?
I think my favorite bet is probably the under in the Bulls-Pacers game.
Okay.
You've just got two teams that are really struggling offensively. Chicago ranks 29th, their last 15 games in offensive rating. The Pacers are 27th. And then you factor in that they've been struggling that much with DeMar DeRozan, and now they don't have DeMar DeRozan tonight. The Pacers are a bad defensive team. I understand that, but I'm just struggling to see how these two teams combine for 231 points. I just think one of them, probably Indiana, if I had to guess, just because Chicago's defense has been the best by defensive rating in the NBA across their last 15 games. One of these two teams is just going to score or struggle to score like 105, 110 points. And if that's the case, they're just not getting to this number. Like, I don't trust both of these offenses enough. I was shocked this number wasn't like 224, 225. The fact it was over 230 made it a pretty enticing bet.
Bro, this stretches a very long time, but the last 27 meetings in Indiana between these two teams, the under is 20-7. Like that, there's something too. Like they go to Indiana and it's just like, all right, let's just not score points. Fryer, hey, I saw some news with the Celtics, right? Tatum, they get some of the big dogs back tonight. Like, how does that change your view with that game?
Yeah, so I did like the Pistons as underdogs, thinking that Jason Tatum wasn't going to play. And not only is Jason Tatum not on the injury report, but it looks like Marcus Smart is back too. So obviously, never mind the fact that like just Tatum alone is back. But I will say that I was interested in looking at Tatum's points prop, but leaning towards the under if he does play in this game, because this is a team that's under 500. Right? Obviously, the Pistons are not a great team. Yeah, sure, they could have been in a spot to steal it if no Tatum and no Brown and no Smart, but that's not the case. And we're right before the All-Star break too, and he's playing in the 3-point contest. Not that should be important, like crazy important for regular season approach, but I think in terms of managing his load, and now you're going up against a lackluster team. Okay, maybe we try and limit Tatum's minutes after he was just sick. And again, also, he was just sick, so I don't entirely trust how he's going to be feeling tonight. I'm sure he's fine enough to play, but the total is at 31.5 points. That is enough for me to want to take the under in this one. The over on his prop is 29 in 22 this season, but he's gone under this number in 32 of his 54 games played. And he's gone under this number 25 in the 41 times he's gone against a team that VSiN, our friends over at VSiN, label as a weak defensive team.
Okay. All right. Fade Fryer. Time for it. What do you got, dude? This is tough too, because the Genesis Invitational, Riviera, like Tiger Woods is getting all the attention. All these other big dogs who love to eat are actually flying under the radar right now. This is like a major field, and this is playing on a course that is compared to major courses around the PGA Tour. So what do you got this week? What's your bet? What's your golf bet?
Yeah, I mean, in looking at you, as I mentioned every time we talk about this, I do like to look at Jeff's cheat sheet beforehand, because he talks about winning trends in there that are so important and what the winner did last season. And that's kind of where I start things off. Then I also look at, strokes gained on putting, who's hot right now. And I will say Tony Finau is not hot with the putter right now. But what's so important in this tournament, again, looking at those, Jeff's breakdown, is shots gained tee to green. And Finau is third in that right now. He just went up in the standings. I think he was like fifth in all the PGA. So I know he's not an underdog, but like you said, Emerson, like this is not the tournament to necessarily go with an underdog. You got 23 of the top 25 players competing in this thing. So I'm fine with Finau, and I'm going with him at plus 1,600 to win the whole thing. No hedging or anything like that. I just want him as my winner.
I'm just gonna say he did, was at that tournament last week. He did pretty well. It was a week that was also kind of tricky for a lot of players with the weather, with the frost and all that kind of jazz. And he also had this tournament in his hands, for crying out loud, 2 years ago. Knock it off.
There we go.
Knock it off. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to go for a walk. Garion, thanks for joining us today.
No worries. You know what? I'm going to throw this out there real quick, because you just said tee to green and stuff. Iron play, is that going to be important? Vic Hovland. Hovland, 28-1.
Oh, boy.
Hey. He likes this place, Garion. He likes this place. He's been the top 5 the last 2 years.
There we go.
And for some reason, it kind of doesn't make sense, but he's here. And you know what? We followed his group for like 2 holes, because no one was following them when we were at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. So I don't know. Is it like a kiss of death? Yeah. It's either the kiss of death or we're best friends.
Okay.
It depends. But I do actually like both those picks. Wish Jeff was here to back us up. I'm sure he would disagree, but whatever. We can do our own thing because he's not here. But Gary, and yeah, seriously, thanks for sliding in, man. Appreciate it. Nice work, Nick. You can go home now. You're in the pod
Thank
studio.
you. Yes,
Man,
yes.
you've been there all damn day. Leave. All right. What is this? Brent Chinchilla Smart. Oh my God. Amen. Love you. DK on the 1s and 2s. Hold on. I'm going to check Slack because everyone gives me crap for not doing that. Packers at the Vikings is next in Simlam. I hope everybody enjoys that. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock Eastern time for a Thursday edition of The Sweat. Love you. Mean it. Peace.